So, as I mentioned before, it really is just normal sort of Visual Studio Code. So one of the things I'd like to do, I want to do an application where we combine both a cloud service but also with my phone. So I can actually show both of those two things working together. Okay? Now for the cloud service itself, I've already written one here. I've got it sitting on my machine. It's just a WCF service. We've gone through and created this friend service right here. It's got an iFriend service and the get friends kind of method on that. It allows me to go back and fetch a set of lists off of a database using SQL Azure. So I can store my friends list up there. I can write a WCF service on top of it, deploy it up into the Azure Compute Cloud, and use that in order to be able to pull all of that data back into the system. Okay, so I've got also, as you can see here, I have an entity file right here. This is just a connection to my SQL Azure database. I've pulled in the friends table that allows me to go ahead and do the query. So data tier SQL Azure, go grab all of my friends list off of that database, pull it back, and now express it as a web service with the get friends methodology itself. If I just do a Control F5 and launch that thing. Now what this is going to do is it's actually going to go ahead and launch locally, because I'm doing testing for production purposes on my machine. It's going to launch the app fabric and the dev fabric, which is my local kind of service that simulates Azure itself. And boom, I launched the service itself, and as you can see, this looks like a normal service definition, the same sort of thing you'd get if you were looking at a WSDL proxy or something like that. As you can see, I have the full address to the WSDL if I wanted to go ahead and use that in another chunk of code, and a couple of example files that show me how to instantiate being able to use that service and be able to pull that data back out of there. Okay, so my server here is up and running, and I'm exposing that service out of that. So that's all well and good. The next thing we need to do is go back and open Visual Studio Express. This is the new version that we just announced at the Mix conference for doing development for Windows Phone. Let's remove the text editor, get a little more real estate on here. The first thing you're going to see is this is just, once again, normal Visual Studio as you would expect. Now, once again, we also have the split view. Because we have this nice vertical form factor for the phone, we're actually splitting it vertically instead of horizontally like the websites. That gives me a decent view of here's what my application, you can see the entire phone. Obviously, if we were running at a high resolution, the entire thing would fit up there and be much easier, but for demo purposes on this projector, we're at 1024, 768, but you get the idea. Here's all of our content. I can switch back and forth. You can see I just have normal markup. This is XAML, so this is a Silverlight package, and you can see I have games and content and things like that running for the phone as well. Now, one of the things I'd like to do then is I want to add some new functionality. So I'm going to go over into the toolbox, which I'm used to. Let's go pull this over. Let's go ahead and add a button onto the bottom of my form here. And so here, let's see, that's a button on there, that's fine. Let's go ahead and change this to find friends. And you can see I can do basically the editing. I'm running out of space, but I can edit both in the markup, as you would expect, as well as kind of on the design surface area. So if I grab this and spread it out, let's kind of bookmark it over there, and we'll pull it over here on this side. Now I can see all the text, and I have a nice button sitting at the bottom of my application. Okay. That's good. So now I have my kind of user interface piece. Now, I have this service, and I want to take advantage of it. So what I'm going to do is right-click. I'll do an Add Service Reference. And because I have, in this project, I have the friend service, so we'll go ahead and grab that guy. And let's call this one, let's call this friend service 5. How's that sound? We'll do an OK. So now this does the normal add service reference you'd expect. It goes, grabs the WSDL, grabs the proxy back for it, figures out how to pull all that content back in. You can see I get all the service definitions, and it figures out all the config data that's required to program against it. So now my phone application has the UI. I got a button for it. I've got a service reference for it. I haven't actually combined those two things together. So one of the things we want to do is let's go to let's see, the details page on here. Let's open up friend details. Okay, so this is actually the details page that we have. Basically, we want to be able to be able to do that, and I actually put that here. That was my mistake. Let's put the button over here. Helps if you put it in the right form. Okay, let's put this in here. And we'll just leave that one alone. Okay, so if I double click that one, now I go into my button click here. Let's add some source code for that. And so we'll do the friends handler. That one's pretty straightforward. This one's just going to go ahead and navigate, go grab the URL for that service and pull that data back in. So then I wind up having the right kind of content. So that gives me all the content that I want for that. Now the next thing that I need to be able to do once we get that content in, we also need to go back and let's look again at this guy right here. This is basically our main form. Let's do a view code. Okay, we have our details page. Okay, that looks good. So now I have all the right kind of content for that one. Let's go back into friends list. Okay, let's go ahead and view the code in this guy. Okay, so here I have my loaded form, and I also need to pull back the code for that one as well. So this one basically just goes through and sets up an actual event handler so I can go through and find that, get back all my friends and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Now, if I haven't managed to screw up my source code too much here, I can set breakpoints in here. We'll go ahead and hit F5 and launch the application. Now, in this case, we're actually connecting to the Windows Phone 7 emulator, which is running here in the background. You can see the normal sort of UI. This thing is actually hardware accelerated on the machine, which is pretty cool because I get a kind of very good interactive experience to it. Now we're actually going back and taking the app that I just compiled and now deploying it to the emulator. So the app is actually running on here. You can see I put the Find Friends on here. I actually hit the wrong form. Here's the button where I should have put it. Okay. Let's just click the button and get it. And here's my breakpoint. So now my application's running in the emulator. I've got the parts over there. I'm running the application interactively. I can once again go through and hit any content that I want. Let's go ahead and hit F5. And now I have a set of friends. I see my boss, Mr. Soma. So let's go ahead and select Mr. Soma. So now I can play with Soma or any of my other friends. And here's the application in here, and I can go ahead and play it. So you can see what we wound up doing here. Very straightforward. By going through and using the new download for this, I wound up creating a project. I wound up writing, basically using XAML because I know Silverlight, so I know how to do markup. So with that, we've got this game in here. I'm able to go ahead and hook it up to an Azure service, which is using SQL Azure. So now I've got my data tier. I've got my, my backend compute tier. Both of them running up in the cloud, right next to each other. Compute over here, and SQL Azure right next door, working very closely together. And now I have my phone application, once again using just normal Silverlight with WCF, adding a service reference, connecting up to it, data binding, pulling back all of that data. Okay, it's basically all the same concepts that you're really doing today for, say, enterprise applications, or equivalent kind of content like that.